Welcome to AV Plus, the podcast from Commercial Integrator. I'm Adam Forziati, Senior Web Editor here at CI. One of the technology vertical markets which changed the most this year had to be education. Whether that's your K through 12 or your higher ed institutions, schools in general entered panic mode when they rapidly had to shift from in-person to hybrid to completely remote, then back again, sometimes all in the course of just a few weeks. Now, while we're still hearing from integrators that their school clients are beginning to find some kind of stability in their approach to hybrid learning right now, we're wondering what the rest of 2021 has in store for these clients and the integrators who serve them. Today on AV Plus, we're speaking with Mark Knox at NEC and Brad Thomas at Diversified, all about visual solution trends in education spaces right now. And since there's not much to report in AV news this week, we'll get to that conversation right now.
What are like the current trends in higher education right now from a visual technology standpoint?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. There are, so many opportunities to add or upgrade visual technologies. I'm seeing additions in classrooms to increase image size, which allows students to spread out, newly created flex spaces. Confidence monitors has been another popular addition, which allows instructors to make eye contact and really be more attached to their audience. Many campuses are adding digital signage for emergency response, wayfinding, and I think that's a huge area that's going to continue to grow for the coming years. And I'm also starting to get more requests for various LED options. I just had a customer in Tennessee reach out inquiring about a portable LED video wall for viewing basketball replays. So I thought that was kind of a cool application. Hey, Mark, what are you seeing around LED video walls and kitted solutions?
Yeah, sure. So that's an interesting subject you bring up, because I think traditionally, when we think about DirectView LED in higher education settings, we kind of defaulted to jumbotrons in the athletic department, right? And we're getting to a place now where people are understanding that you can get a much finer pitch the DirectView LED display, meaning that you can have your students and your faculty much closer to the screen and really get that vibrant image. So not only are we seeing them for digital signage applications on a large scale, we're seeing them in finance departments of business schools to do tickers, right? Full color tickers. And then of course, we're seeing them actually in classroom instructor environments as well. So DirectView LED is a reasonable and absolutely viable display option when it comes to higher education. So at this point, we can really put in the correct solution for the application and not be pigeonholed into this or that. So yeah.
I'll add to that, Mark. The price has certainly come down, and for a while when it first came out, everybody was saying, "Hey, are the panels going to last as long as they say they're going to last?" And I think that there's some pretty good, studies around how effective and how reliable the technology is. So I think this is really going to be a growing area for the industry, certainly for us, and certainly for industry.
Yeah, when you think about the price in general, 100% of DirectView LED applications 2 or 3 years ago were custom applications, right? Which ultimately means that you're going to pay a higher price. Now with kitted solutions, like you mentioned before, Brad, we can give you a 110 or 120 inch display that comes with absolutely everything you need to go out of the box and have it up and running. And, contrary to popular belief, those are the sizes that people want, right? So
totally
it just
agree.
works.
It addresses that sweet spot.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then my next question for you too would be, what have you heard from integrators in terms of like where the education market is even going this year? I know it's kind of hard to predict after the year we've had, but what are you hearing on the ground, so to speak?
Yeah, well, from a manufacturer standpoint, given the relationships that we have directly with a lot of the institutions, from our AV managers, we're hearing a huge emphasis from the people that they serve on campus, right? The different department heads and things like that. A huge emphasis on student outcomes. I think one thing that we think about as technology people over the past year is, yeah, we scrambled to create virtual learning. We scrambled to create these different solutions, thinking that we were basically just going to pick up where we left off. But, you know, the thing that we neglect sometimes, just to be honest, is the fact that, hey, students are not getting the outcomes that they were getting before, right? And a lot of that has to do with the ability to interact with the professor or the instructor. When the instructor or professor has to change their learning style for virtual learning, it ultimately affects how that student, interacts with the material. So we've come to a point now where we're trying to close that gap, and we're trying to do that with more creative display arrangements. You heard Brad mention confidence monitors, right? The ability to put virtual students and physical students in the same room via monitors behind the physical students so that the facilitator can deliver their message the same exact way that they would do it if the classroom was full of physical students, right? So we're trying to get to a place where we can really blend different styles of learning, different styles of instruction, as well as whatever display technology we can use to support that mission. Because again, the mission and the vision of the universities has not changed. It's exactly what it was before the pandemic. And they're still striving to meet those customer, student outcomes. So we're trying to support them in that. So Brad, I mean, you got a slightly different perspective because you deal with the solution approach, right? The whole shebang. So
right.
Curious to hear what's coming from your end.
Well, and I'll, hopefully get an opportunity to expand on some of that student outcome, because I agree that's really one of the primary focuses for any institution. It's student outcome. I totally agree with that. A lot of our technology discussions right now are around touchless environments. This is a huge concept. Less handheld devices, less devices to clean on a daily basis, class to class basis. So, frees up time for the university. But it's interesting. One university said they were handing out individual lapel mics to each instructor. I found that, an interesting approach to manage the environment. And, I think one of the biggest trends that I'm seeing for the future is in education anyway, is creating rooms that auto start and auto stop. Turnkey rooms, which allow instructors to walk in, present. My last podcast, Mark, do you remember this? I had Mark, I had University of Tennessee, I had UC Merced on the call, and Joden Bellafato at UC Merced talked about the instructor's cognitive load. There's really only so much an instructor can focus on, and as they move from class to class, the instructor really wants to focus on the lecture material. Ideally, the instructor should walk in, the class should start, the lecture capture should start, the class should stop. All of that could be quickly posted to the LMS, and I think creating this environment will free up the instructor to focus on their lecture and not have to worry about technology. I think that's really a cool trend that's happening right now.
Yep, that's exactly. I mean, I completely agree. You talk about simple solutions, right? It ultimately needs to be simple for the instructor. So again, that they can reduce the cognitive load and focus on the material to, bring it full circle, improve student outcomes, right? Or at least maintain student outcomes.
I think you two started to kind of touch on this a little bit already, but I'm kind of curious to know what kind of key customer pain points that integrators should be focusing on right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start, and I'm gonna let Brad take it home for sure. When it comes to being a manufacturer and really having a solutions mindset as a company, we try to support Brad at Diversified with simple, flexible, and mobile solutions. That's really what we try to do. We understand the types of scenarios that he's faced with, and we understand that the gear that we need to be able to spec for him, again, needs to be simple, flexible, and most of the time in this environment, mobile, right? So when you talk about pain points, the biggest one is ease of use. We want classrooms that come on by themselves and turn off by themselves. And we want classrooms that if everything gets out of whack, the display is not the last piece of equipment to get back in line. Right. And then, of course, that flexibility because our universities don't know what's coming next, right? We always say you can't predict the future, but you can anticipate change. They know change is on the horizon, but they don't know exactly what that's going to look like. So if we're able to give them, like Brad was talking earlier, a kitted DirectView LED scenario, for example, that is on a mobile solution where they can roll it into the athletic department in different rooms and look at film in different spaces, to us, that's the best value that we can provide. So I'm going to let Brad again, close the gap on kind of bringing everything in under one roof.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Pain points. I talk with a lot of universities across the United States, and all of them have different pain points, but there's a couple of big ones. I think for the next year or two, budgets are going to be a big concern. It's interesting when I look at and I talk with institutions. All states and institutions have been so different through this pandemic. Some had rainy day funds and were able to fund technology throughout this situation. Yet others, even in the same university system, had little or no money for upgrades. It was really crazy. And I talked with a few campuses that are pushing a 10-year refresh cycle.
Wow.
That's way too long to hold on to technology and make the classrooms effective. And quite frankly, they're spending a lot of time and effort on the classrooms that are down instead of focused on really key other things that I think they should be. Second pain point that comes to mind is really developing the best hybrid, high flex spaces. Mm-hmm. Institutions are making decisions right now on, how many students can be in one classroom, how many students can be on campus at the same time. And I think one of the biggest challenges with hybrid is how do we make the remote participant feel attached to the lecture? I think this is a really important question we need to solve along the way as we kind of recommend technology. But I'm excited about things like there's really cool immersive solutions out there as well. I'm seeing fast growing adoption with immersive technology that allows instructors to face forward and invert the image and make it legible. When creating a hybrid space, I really think this is important to offer technology that is engaging to both in-person and remote learners. That's really going to be cool, as we're going to see a lot of participants not opting to go on campus even when they can. And so how do we accommodate for that learning environment? How do we draw them in? How do we attach them to that culture of that university, even if they're remote? It's pretty interesting topic to cover with some of these institutions. Probably final pain point, and maybe the most important, and Mark touched on this earlier, is the adoption of the new technology. And how do we add professional development and training? This might be the most important part of all of this that we're talking about. If we look at when the pandemic started, many institutions were ready to scrap their lecture capture altogether or didn't have an enterprise Zoom license. Most institutions were, simply reactive, and training was an afterthought. So if you look at, what they're trying to do today, with regard to instructional design, I just think that the more we can get these groups talking to promote, what types of equipment needs to be in the room for what type of subject matter, it's just going to help things tie in together. I think it's a huge positive that we're now having professional instructional design engage more with IT on these campuses. And, Mark and Adam, I hope that institutions press forward with technologies that can create the best outcome. That's what Mark talked about. I think that's what it's all about. That's where the focus should be, increasing student outcomes. And I think we have some really good technology tools to help.
I definitely hope so too. So finally, guys, I wanted to also ask you, what are Diversified and NEC focusing on right now in your servicing of the higher ed market in the near future?
Sure, I'll jump in. There's some really cool things and exciting new things to talk about. Esports is an interesting one that comes to mind. Several institutions are developing a new platform to try to attract more students, and certainly, the gaming industry is a popular thing for our young people that are entering colleges. break fix, proactive room monitoring. That's another good one. I think Diversified has the opportunity to assist campuses in being more productive. Certainly an area that we're talking with and opening up discussion on. AV over IP for scalability. This is a really big topic. And if you look at institutions like USC, they're a great study this last year for AV over IP. They really turned over their entire campus and went AV over IP for the scalability and the future ability of what their campus looks like. It's a great story from Joe Way.
Yeah.
And I think one of my favorites, and I would be remiss if I didn't say this, is I love active learning spaces. I love the promotion of concept learning. I think there's some really great videos out there. People can pull those up on Vimeo, look for active learning spaces. But I believe that focusing on, the active learning spaces increases that student output. Again, it's a different type of learning. It's concept learning. And these spaces can build a sense of community by the students working together. It moves us away from that one-way linear push. That's what I think is going to change over time and create that better output, is that concept learning environment that we can create. And certainly NEC has been a big partner for us when putting displays into those active learning spaces.
I'll just add to some of those trends that you're talking about. First and foremost, what I'm seeing is universities focusing on preparing students for corporate America and what they commonly call the afterlife. Right? When you look at the solutions that NEC and Diversified are able to put together, we're not talking about solutions that are necessarily exclusive to higher education. A lot of the gear that we're delivering, in those packages, is the same stuff that we put into corporate. To be honest, it's the same stuff that we put into different verticals, everywhere in the world, right? So, preparing students for the afterlife with really the same technology. The other thing, contrary to popular belief, and something that I think we kind of just assumed was standard at this point, but it is really not in higher education, is 4K. 4K. Specifically for projection, has taken off in higher education because people are really understanding now that it's not necessarily about me having 4K content on the front end. It's how close can I put a student to the screen, or how close can I put a student to the actual material. When we're in this world of hybrid learning, everybody that is socially distanced, now we have to use every square foot of each classroom. Right. So now where our first row of seats may have been at 15 to 20 feet away, that first row of seats is at 7 feet now.
Right.
And in order for that student that's sitting at 7 feet and the student that's sitting at 15 or 30 to be able to have a legible image, it has to be a higher resolution. So now we're talking 4K on a 220-inch screen, where in the past, WUXGA was suffice. Right. That leads into the other thing with DirectView LED. As DirectView LED pixel pitches get finer, as the black levels get even better and better, we're seeing large screen opportunities transform from projection into DirectView LED. Now, obviously, those two price points aren't comparable quite yet, but the universities that are investing in new builds and energy efficient buildings and things like that, they're putting that DirectView LED technology just to kind of future proof it a little bit, right? They're investing a little bit more. But that's a whole nother ball game when it comes to displays, because now we have something that is made up of a whole bunch of little video tiles, right? That's power is different, the video processing is different, and again, we're getting into a corporate like space in education, which in the past those two worlds were pretty separate. Room automation from some of our automation partners, as Brad was talking about earlier, is critical now. And, some universities, contrary to popular belief, everybody doesn't have the latest in automation gear. Everybody can't walk to the podium and hit 2 or 3 buttons and have everything automated. We're seeing that trickle down big time from corporate, along with video, over IP, along with that technology, along with HD-based T. Again, those things are trickling down and it's becoming commonplace. So I would look to our corporate America vertical and see where they're headed. And I'm telling you, very soon after, you're going to see that in the classroom.
Yep, same environments in enterprise, right? As you look at that, walk in, the room is pre-programmed.
Absolutely.
Your meeting just starts.
Yeah.
It recognizes your desktop.
Yep.
It's the same thing going on. And I am excited because I think there's a ton of room in higher education in this space, for them to just start chunking away at what their classroom of the future looks like. How do we make it easier? How do we reduce tech calls on campus?
Right.
How do we, have less maintenance on equipment? All of these are great discussions, and whether they're going to start now or they put it into a roadmap where they're looking at it 2, 3, 4 years from now, at least we're getting them into the planning stage. And that's what I'm excited about. Our job is to really show up, listen, ask great questions, and help them craft the best plan, with the budget that they have.
Absolutely. And you, real quick, Brad, you mentioned roadmaps. Adam, that's a huge way that we work together, is making sure that these guys understand what's on the horizon from us. We're supposed to be the innovators in display technology, right? So if it's coming from us, it's cutting edge. If we adopt the technology and we manufacture the technology, these guys are knowing about it, and they're knowing about it, years in advance, which helps them be able to, again, create solutions, custom or out of the box solutions for different pain points for universities. We also look at it from a standpoint of just overall the fact that, yes, you might have a problem and you might need this room automated and you might need better resolution and you might want DirectView LED. We've already figured it out, right? It's not like every time we walk into a room or we have a conversation with an end user that we have to come up with this complex flow chart of how this system is going to work. No, Brad and the guys at Diversified have been working with NEC for decades. We've already figured it out. As Brad said, we figured it out for enterprise. So it's just a matter of time before we adapt it, so that it's just as easy to use in that higher education setting.
Well, the cool thing about road mapping, Mark and Adam, is that it really gives feedback to the manufacturer. I mean, you're the manufacturer. You can take that feedback back through your engineering groups.
Very true.
And really help everybody plan for the future.
That's right.
That's what road mapping does. It opens up that discussion. And I know that we can go into some really in-depth discussions around road mapping, but that feedback is super valuable for both Diversified and for NEC, so that we can help the customer plan.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'm not going to say it's a complete open wish list, but there have been numerous accounts where we've heard the same theme across different end users and integrators, Brad, from people like Diversified, to say, hey, we need this feature on the next panel, or we need this feature on the next projector, or we're not going to use that, so take that away, or don't charge us for that. And we've done it, right? Because again, our most valuable source of feedback comes from the people that use our products, clearly. Right. So at this point in the game, yes, road mapping and understanding the voice of our customers really is critical to both of our success.